Hey! All right. Well, we don't waste any time here on Chic-A-Go-Go. So, Mr. Cohran, ladies and gentlemen, we are so honored to have a living legend, not only in America, in Illinois, and Chicago, but right here on the show. Let's give him a big round of applause, Mr. Phil Cohran. It is such an honor for you to be here. And I was telling Mr. Cohran that if you look this man up on the internet, there's pages and pages of amazing information about your life, work, and so many. I don't even know where to start.
Well,
how about with your
start
music?
With that song. It was in 1967 that we wrote it.
Sure.
And it was on the beach at 64th Street Beach. We had an artistic program out there, and I wrote that song called The Minstrel. And so it came out that year, and it's still around, and people still dancing to it.
Well, we loved that one, didn't we? It was such a great song.
Oh, I'd like to say, I wanted to demonstrate the instrument because this was an instrument that I made in 1961.
Sure, can we hold that up?
Dealing with musicology, and I wanted to explore my African heritage, so I put together a model of this African thumb piano, and I adapted the band to play. That's what you were dancing to, that African thumb piano. Some people call it a kalimba because kalimbas came out around the same time in South Africa. But mine is much better than a kalimba, and I always like to demonstrate it.
Oh, well, we'd love for you.
Is this the francophone?
This is the francophone. That's what I call it, and I named it after my mother, whose name was Frankie May.
Well,
so I call it a francophone.
She's on it. Okay. Wow.
That sounded great.
That was beautiful. Oh, that was so great. So one important organization I wanted to let the kids know that you were a founder of is the very important AACM, which was founded here in Chicago. Can you tell the kids at home a little bit about that?
Well, the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians. It had a very great impact because up until that time, musicians usually played the popular music, what everyone else was listening to on the radio. But we set up a thing as musicians. We wanted to play our own music that come out of us. And so we set up a rule in our group as we formed. We said we can only play original music, the music that you create.
Isn't that great?
So that forced everyone to write, and people are still writing now. It's changed quite a bit of the world's attitude about music and jazz.
And I know that it's such a great group that you formed, and it's still going strong.
I'd like to point out that they have always represented something positive.
Oh, that's nice.
They are positive musicians.
That is great. And the world needs more of them, and I'm so glad that you're here forefronting that.
I'll add also that one of my albums was the top album in the United Kingdom last week.
Oh, great. Oh, what was that? Last week? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, may I ask the other?
Malcolm X Memorial.
Oh, that's great. They love him overseas as well as in Chicago. They love him everywhere. Well, I know that you're multifaceted in addition to
Well, I wanted
music,
to do a poem also for everybody. I hate to take up all of your valuable time with so many sparkling spirits here.
Please honor us with a poem. We would love that.
But I try to stand up for the cause of Paul Laurence Dunbar, simply because he was the first great giant of poetry in America that really spoke to our condition. And so he touched people the way they live. This poem is called Possum Trot.
Okay. We'll give you some space here to go ahead and perform it.
I've journeyed around considerable, seeing men and things, and I've learned a little of the sense that meeting people bring. But in spite of all my traveling. And all I think I know, I've got one notion in my head that I can't get to go. And it is that the folk I meet in any other spot ain't half so good as them I know back home in Possum Trot. I know you never heard the name. It ain't a famous place, and I reckon if you'd search the map, you couldn't find a trace of any such locality as this I've named to you. But never mind, I know the place and love it dearly too. It don't make no pretensions to being great or fine. The circuses don't come that way. There ain't no railroad line. It ain't a great big city where the schemers plan and plot, but just a little settlement, this place called Possum Trot. Now, don't you think the folk that lived in that outlandish place were ignorant of all the things that go for sense of grace? Why, there was Hannah Dyer. You may search this team in earth and never find a sweeter girl or one of greater worth. And Uncle Abner Williams, leaning on his staff. It seems like I can hear him talk and hear his hearty laugh. His heart was big and cheery as a sunny acre lot. Why, that's the kind of folk we had down there at Possum Trot. Good times? Well, now to suit my taste, and I'm some hard to suit. There ain't been no such pleasure since, and there won't be none to boot. With husking bees at harvest times and dances later on, and singing schools and taffy pulls and fun from night to dawn. Revival come in the wintertime, baptizing in the spring. You ought to heard them people shout and see them pray and sing. You ought to heard old Parson Brown throwing gospel shots amongst the saints and sinners in the days of Possum Trot. We live up in the city now. My wife was bound to come. I hear around me day by day the endless stir and hum. I reckon that it done me good, and yet it done me harm, that oil was found so plentiful down there on my old farm. We've got a new-style church now, new-style preacher too. And I've come down from what I know to rent a cushioned pew. But often when I'm sitting there, it's foolish like as not to think of them old benches in the church at Possum Trot. I know that I'm ungrateful and such thoughts must be a sin, but I find myself a-wishing that the times were back again, with the huskings and the frolics and the joys we used to know when I lived at the settlement a dozen years ago. I don't feel this way often, and I'm scarcely ever glum, for life has taught me how to take her chances when they come. But now and then my mind goes back to that old burying plot that holds the dust of some I love down there in Possum Trot.
Thank you very much. I'm just like getting the magic off of this band to the next tune. And speaking of magic, we're going to introduce another one of your songs. I had to cheat on this one. You have to forgive me. We're going to dance now to your song, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. How'd I do? Did I do okay?
That's not a dance.
Uh-oh. Well, we're going to dance to it anyway. Here we go. Uh-oh.
I'd like to see that.
Let's do it. Thank you. Thank you, Cohran.